to give listeners an idea of the just some of the headline numbers and performance from this combined report. Revenue. Oh, and I should add that all these figures that I'm about to use are pro forma adjusted, essentially. So it's an apples to apples comparison for this quarter where it's a combined entity to the prior year, as if it were a combined entity at that time. So revenue up 2.9% to $2.9 billion over those pro forma prior year figures. So again, in terms of annual revenue, this, as Dan mentioned, this is amounting to be about $11 billion business. Net income up 19% year over year to $301 million. And the way the company reports for its business, it breaks it down into 4 segments. So in descending order by revenue, we have packaged beverages, coffee systems, beverage concentrates, and then Latin America beverages. So the packaged beverages is, I think, the core business where the company is producing and distributing its own drinks. It's some third-party brands. Coffee systems is that legacy Keurig Green Mountain business. Beverage concentrates is when they're selling these concentrates to bottlers and fountain customers. And then the last one, obviously, their beverage business focus in Latin America. So the two biggest segments are packaged beverages and the coffee systems. So together they make up over 80% of the company's top line, and I think drive a lot of the story for the company. Any updates specific to those two segments, Dan, that you want to highlight?
So what I thought was really interesting, so you and I used to cover Keurig when it was a publicly traded company, and we'd look at the K-Cup sales as sort of an indicator of where the company was going.
Yes. And
there was a lot of thought that Keurig had plateaued, and that because of some of the environmental backlash, that there was really going to be sort of a slowdown. And we see here that K-Cup sales were actually up 3% year over year in the quarter, and brewer sales, which kind of stunned me, were up 8%. And that's on the strength of the company launching two new sort of more functional, they make lattes, cappuccinos without having to use a different pod. The company has struggled with that sort of go from the basic cup of coffee to go to the full latte cappuccino. Or if you remember, the View struggled, and now they have sort of a system where you don't have to buy anything special. You just have to kind of add milk and it will make you those products. And consumers are really liking it. They also had success with a revised version of their Mini, and I'm looking over my Keurig Mini is just off camera here. And the new one is much sleeker. It takes up a lot less shelf space, and consumers have bought, which I got to be honest, surprises me because I've never particularly cared for the cup of coffee a Keurig makes.
Yeah, I will say that 8% growth, especially for the volume in brewers, that is a nice kind of longer term signal where they're growing that installed base of devices, and ultimately that's what they want, because once that device is in your home, then there exists the potential for them to create that more sustainable recurring revenue with the pods. And something with the pods too that they've changed is their way they view pricing. I think in the beginning they realized that what they called a barrier to entry for consumers to their kind of whole Keurig system is the price of the pods being expensive, them having to deal with lower price competitors, getting some public backlash from trying to lock out people using these third-party pods. But now they're approaching it from the view that they got to lower the prices, make it more competitive, and this recurring revenue will kind of speak for itself.
Yeah, and I think it's a case where they've proven that this is how Americans make coffee for the most part, and it's a convenience over quality model. You're certainly going to get the people like me who are still going to sit there and do pour over cups or French presses or who knows what $400 brewer you might have. But for the average office, the average person, this is the standard. And the other thing that sort of staying part of this JAB Holdings family is you're starting to see a couple more partnerships within that family, and the ability to roll in all those different coffee brands, Douai Egver and Caribou, and I can't even list all of them. Peet's is one. So the ability you have this in your home, and now JAB Dr Pepper, they can make all of these new deals to sort of keep it interesting. Tim Hortons is one they just partnered with, and that is the biggest coffee brand in Canada. So being able to sort of have that as your flagship for that market should continue to push sales.